recording. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. ربنا زدنا علما. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase us in beneficial knowledge. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teach us that which we need from the surahs that we're doing today. We are going to be doing Surat Al-Fil, Surat Quraysh. I'm hoping those two will be quite short. And then Surat Al-Humaza, which is a little bit longer than those two. And if you saw the student portal, there's two links. I guess there's two download buttons. The first one is what we're going to do today. So I hope you have that downloaded. All right, so let me open. It's right here. All right, we're going to listen to the surahs, inshallah, and follow along with the translation. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل وأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف مأكول. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen. Nasreen, welcome. Welcome to all of you ladies online. Alhamdulillah. I'm glad we're all able to make it, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. All right. So the two surahs that we're doing today, the ones that we're doing three today, but the two that we're starting with, they are both Makki surahs. So when we look at the background of the surah, there is a story behind Surah Al-Fil. And basically that story is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Ibrahim alayhi salam to take his wife Hajar and to go with her son Ismail, their son Ismail, and he told them to go to an empty land. There was nothing, there was nobody. It was Mecca. He tells them to go there, and he commanded him to leave his wife and his kid there. We all know the story of how, Hajar alayhi salam, she called after Ibrahim alayhi salam, and she said, where are you going, Ibrahim? Where are you going? Where are you going? And he wouldn't respond until she said, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command you to do this? And when he said yes, she said, then keep going. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not cause us harm, or he will not let us be harmed, or he will take care of us, basically. Allah will not cause us to be harmed, right? So that he leaves them, and we know the story, how she goes and she's looking for water. There is nobody, there are no trees, no animals, no human beings, nothing. It's just an empty, dry desert. And she, there's two hills, Safa wal Marwa. She goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down, all in the hopes of trying to find people, trying to find water, because her son is hungry and he's looking. Remember our promise? That's beautiful. So her son is hungry and she has nothing for him. And so subhanAllah, when she comes back, this is when Jibreel alayhi salam comes, and he basically uses the baby's foot to break into the ground and bring out the Zamzam water. And when Hajar alayhi salam she stopped the water like by saying zam zam, like stop, and like made it so that it's in a well. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided for them. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them. And then eventually, after a while, a group of people came. They were the tribe of Jurhum. They were an Arab tribe. And they asked basically permission to be there with Hajar and Ismail alayhi salam. They asked for permission, and she basically said that they could be there as long as her and her son would be managers over the water. Like they would be the ones to have control over the water. So generations later, that's how we have the tribe of Quraysh. And the reason why this story is important is because Ismail alayhi salam intermarries with this tribe of Jurhum, and that who were like, basically who were Arab al-Khalisa, like they were pure Arabs. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. I hope I'm saying this right. But basically, they're the pure Arab tribes, and so he intermixes with them, and eventually we have the Quraysh, right? This is how the tribe comes. This is how the Arabs meet with Ibrahim alayhi salam and become the descendants of Ibrahim alayhi salam as well. Now, this is obviously years later, but what happens is when Ismail alayhi salam grows up and he's old enough to help his father, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands them to build the Kaaba. And so Ibrahim alayhi salam, with the help of his son Ismail, they build the Kaaba. You guys know the story about Ibrahim alayhi salam being commanded to slaughter his son. Now, we've all learned that was Ismail alayhi salam, but there are other opinions that it probably was Ishaq alayhi salam that he was commanded to slaughter, not Ismail alayhi salam. And I learned this from Sheikh Salih al-Maghamsi, where he was talking about why, like the scholars, I guess they have a difference of opinion between which one of them. It wasn't, even though like the popular opinion and what we have all like been taught from a young age is that it was Ismail alayhi salam, but there is that other opinion too that it was Ishaq alayhi salam. But then the story that is for sure is that Ismail alayhi salam is the one that built the Kaaba with Ibrahim alayhi salam. And so when Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail were done with building of the Kaaba, these are the verses that they recited, like what this is the dua that he made for what he wanted this city to be, what he envisioned for the future of the community that will be there. And so the verses are Surat Ibrahim 35 to 48, and then Surat Al-Baqarah 126, 134. And so this is the summary of what these verses entail. What is Ibrahim alayhi salam ultimately asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do for the family that he left in Mecca? Okay, so if we go over the verses, I'm gonna make this screen a little bit bigger. Ibrahim alayhi salam asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَإِذْ قَالَ Ibrahim, when Ibrahim said, "Oh Allah, oh my Rabb, make this city safe. وَجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَّ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ." So the first thing he's asking Allah for is safety and peace, that there's no war, that there's no corruption, that people are well, that people have safety and security, and that they are protected in their faith, that they do not worship the idols. And then he says, Rabbi innahunna, like why? Because they have misguided many people. Whoever follows me is from me, and whoever basically does not obey me, then you are the most forgiving. You are the most merciful. You do what you wish with them. Then he says, oh Allah, oh my Rabb, I have left my own children and my family in a city or in a valley that has no vegetation, in your sacred home, in the Baytik al-Muharram, in your sacred home. Why did I do this? Rabbana, oh my Rabb, so that they may establish the salah. So what should you do, Ya Allah? Please let the hearts of the people يَتَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ, come to them, like that it desires them, that it wants to come to them. وَرْزُقْهُمْ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ, and provide for them of fruits and vegetables, and thamarat is like any vegetation, right? Give them, why? So that they may be thankful to you. And then he says, "O Rabbana, إنك تعلم ما نخفي وما نعلن." Oh, our Rabb, you know what we hide, what we conceal, and you know what we make apparent, and nothing will be hidden from you. And then he thanks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for granting him Ismail and Ishaq while he is in old age, when he basically lost hope of having children. Inna Rabbi lasami'ud du'a. Indeed, my Rabb is he definitely hears our calling. Those two verses don't really go with what we're talking about, but basically showing us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially that last part, sometimes we lose hope in certain things. We lose hope in being able to be granted something. We feel like, okay, it's too old, it's too late, I can't do this, I can't do that, my health is in the way, I live in this country, I can't accomplish this goal. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically teaching us, and Ibrahim is saying these words, is that I never thought I would have a child, but now I have 2 children, and from them generations of humanity will come out. And he's making dua for them when he at some point didn't even have kids. For years he was married to his wife Sarah, didn't have children. And when he was given Ismail, Allah told him to take him away to Mecca. And when he was eventually given Ishaq, Allah told him to slaughter him. So he was really tested in that sense, but generations of people still came from that. And he's saying Inna Rabbi lasami'ud du'a, even though it took a long time, even though it was a very difficult process, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala eventually gave me this, right? And then in the other surah, in Surah Al-Baqarah, he says, Rabbi ja'alni muqima as-salah. Oh Allah, make me someone that establishes the salah, and among my children. Not just me, me and dhurriya in Arabic is offsprings, so generations and generations to come. رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيَّ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَوْمَ يَقُومُ الْحِسَابِ. So basically, Allah, forgive all of us as believers, and my parents and those who have believed until the day of judgment. Now, these verses, if you look at it, they summarize the things that Ibrahim alayhi salam thought were the most important things to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. There was a verse, I don't know if I hope I didn't use the wrong slides, but basically where he says also to send وَابْعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْحِكْمَةَ, that send them a messenger from amongst them that will guide them, or that will show them يُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ, that he purifies their way for them, or their hearts for them, and that he gives them wisdom, Quran and Sunnah basically. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted all. Okay, and the most important things to Ibrahim alayhi salam were safety and peace. If a country or a land is not safe and peace, you can't even worship Allah, right? You cannot even worship Allah you're always in a state of fear. And if somebody's in a state of fear, even our salah is different, there's rulings in the Quran about salah when you are in a state of war, it's not even normal. And then the second thing is to be in a state of monotheism, where you worship Allah alone, do not associate partners with Allah, do not worship idols, because these ideologies are corrupt, and they corrupt the people, they corrupt the nation, they corrupt the community. It's not a solid foundation to be on. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or Ibrahim alayhi salam, recognizes that food supply is really important. How will people survive? And this is a desert that they were at, right? Now, from what I learned is that if you go to the Kaaba, and if you go to, and we will talk about this in Surat Quraysh, how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answer this? In Mecca, in all seasons, because of the business, because of the Hujjaj, because of the pilgrimage, and people always coming from different parts of the world just to answer the call of Allah, people bring their the foods that grow in their lands, right? For the sake of business, to come and sell it. And so you go to Mecca, and even though these foods do not grow there, you have access to them because of this dua that Ibrahim alayhi salam made. The establishment of salah and worship, that a community is able to freely have spiritual development for the people, that the salah is established and the adhan is made, that the places of worship are there, that the places of worship are welcoming, and people can go there to study their deen and to build a community around it, right? Because that shows you like the unity, and we will talk about that today as well. That Allah give them a messenger with guidance and wisdom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from them. So when Ibrahim alayhi salam was done, building the Kaaba with his son, what he said is, رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا, oh Allah, accept from us, إِنَّكَ سَمِيعُ الدُّعَاء, رَبَّنَا وَتَقَبَّلْ دُعَاء, Allah, accept from us our dua. So a believer is always in a state where they are in hope. Yes, we do actions, but we never walk away thinking it's accepted. We always walk away with that hope and with continuously asking Allah, Ya Allah, accept from us. Ya Allah, make it something that pleases you. Make it something that you accept from us. So if you look at in the way Ibrahim alayhi salam made this dua, it shows you the needs of a community, the needs of a person. What is it that we need to be safe, feel safe and peace? We need to be able to have that spiritual connection, have food supply and be satisfied in our basic needs, have worship practices that keep us going, and then have the love of the people. Because love of people, being, having that status, having that importance, having the fact that you're able to contribute and give back, and because of it, people value you and value what you give them, right? And then having wisdom and teachers and people that support your growth, and then that you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from you. I always compare it to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because whenever you take a psychology class, that's the first lesson. That's the first thing you think of. The first thing you think about when we're looking at people's needs, it's the first thing is to be safe and peace, to have their basic needs, and then, to have love, to have self-actualization at the top. Can I fulfill my dreams? And it's good. There's nothing wrong with it. They're both, mashallah. But then to me, it's let's compare the two and see what are the Islamic values, and how does that compare to different teachings? What is different, what is the same, and what do the differences teach us? I need to take a break. Any questions? You made a flower? I like your Legos. So today he's being distracted with a new box of Legos that my friend gave me. Thank you, Jessica. And he's because it's new, it'll have his attention for a long time. Alhamdulillah. Okay, what else? So, wow. So the surah facts and objectives, Surah Al-Fil and Quraysh, they're both Makki surahs. To show the blessings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon us. MashaAllah, Mama. Okay. Oh, okay. Go ahead, drag something then. To show the blessings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon the Quraysh and how he protected his house, the story behind the companions of the elephants and Abraha, and the hadith about the virtues of Quraysh. So we'll talk about all that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alam tara kayfa, Allah is asking a question. Have you not seen what Allah has done with the Ashab al-Fil, with the companions of the Fil? So, Alam yaj'al kaydahum fi tadlil. Did he not make their plotting something that got lost, something that went wrong, something that basically was not successful? وَأَرْسَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ طَيْرًا أَبَابِيلَ. He sent against them swarms, groups of birds. تَرْمِيهِمْ بِحِجَارَةٍ مِّن سِجِّيلٍ. It was throwing at them small rocks that were like baked clay. It's small rocks that had fire. Like they were baked, so they were very hot. And each one was going to each individual had their rock specially designed for them, basically. فَجَعَلَهُمْ كَعَصْفٍ مَأْكُولٍ. When it was done, they looked like chewed up leaves. عَصْفٍ مَأْكُولٍ is what you call when an animal eats like hay, and then, the leftovers, right? So chewed up leaves, that's what the animals leave behind when they eat. That's what the people look like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was done with them, right? So who are these people and what's the story behind them? So basically, they're, you see how like this is Mecca, and then if you go a little bit south, that's Africa, that's Ethiopia, like Habasha, right? And what happened is that there was a man named Abraha who was Christian, worshipping like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he built like a place of worship, a huge church, and he wanted, and his intention was that he would get people to not go to the Kaaba, that they would come here and do the pilgrimage there, right? And nobody ever came. But then one day, some guy who is who's an Arab guy, who was from Mecca, who was from that area, he heard of this, and he left, he basically defecated, or he did something nasty to the church that Abraha built. And Abraha was so upset, he said, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna destroy the Kaaba, right? And he takes his army with elephants, and he at the front had an elephant, very big and very strong, and their intention was, we're going to go to the Kaaba and we're going to destroy it. And as he's heading there, whenever he would come across an Arab tribe, he would take their wealth from them. He would take their animals. He would take their camel and their goats and whatever wealth that they had. And when he almost made it to when people realized okay, this guy is going to come, he's very strong, we're not able to fight him, we cannot be victorious over him, they would just run away, they would just all run away. So everybody ran away, everybody got left the Kaaba thinking we cannot defend this house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So who was the leader of Quraysh at the time? Who was the grandfather of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abdul Muttalib, right? And Abdul Muttalib, when Abraha was at the gates of the city, if you would call it, he went to him, and Abraha welcomed him, he let him come inside, and he spoke really nicely to him, and he was very impressed with Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he says to him, he was very impressed with him, but then Abdul Muttalib had one request, and that request was, let my camel and my wealth, give it back to me. And then Abraha was surprised. He was like, I really thought highly of you. I thought you were coming here to ask me not to destroy the house, this Kaaba that you all believe in. Instead, you only care about your wealth. What's that all about? So he says to him, I am the guardian of the animals, and I have responsibility over them. But this house, this Kaaba, Allah is its guardian, and Allah will take care of it. I cannot take care of it. But I need my animals, basically. So I think, Wallahu ta'ala alam, he might have given it to him, and then he left. And also everybody evacuated the city, left the city, went to the mountains, or Allah ta'ala alam where they went. Today, the reason why I'm saying Allah ta'ala alam where I went, everything is Allah alam where my mind is. But anyways, so they all leave and they try to rescue themselves and their families. And that's when Allah, that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. Did you not see what your Rabb has done to the people of the elephant? Allah is saying, I took care of them. How did Allah take care of them? There was no human being to fight them. I sent birds to take care of them with little rocks that had fire in it, and hit each one of them in the head, and it destroyed all of them. all of them were killed, and all of them were in that state. And Allah is basically saying, this is how I protected my house. Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protecting this house? So a couple of things is that, first, why do we call the Kaaba al-Haram? Why do we call it al-Haram? The word haram comes from the root word harama, which means like forbidden. And in the Kaaba, or in this home, in this place of worship, there are things that are permissible anywhere else. But when you are in the haram, it is not permissible. You're not able to carry weapons. You're not able to hunt. You're not able to, depending on the time and the purpose why you're there, some things that it is halal for you to do, like relations with your spouse, you're not able to do that if you are in a state of worship. In the haram, if you're doing your umrah, if you're in your state of hajj, even though that's completely halal, but basically things that you're not allowed to carry weapon. So there are things that are permissible, but when you are in the Kaaba, you're not allowed to do them. Okay, and so that's why it is called Bayt al-Haram. The reward for praying in the Bayt al-Haram is, the Prophet ﷺ tells us in hadith, where if somebody prayed 2 rak'ahs in the Kaaba, that they are getting 1,000 reward. Like it's as if they have prayed 1,000. So like they're getting in the reward of 1,000 salah, basically. And it's a journey of a lifetime. Like we know that in our 5 pillars of Islam, one of them is that if you are capable, once in your life, you go and perform your hajj. Why? What are some of the lessons that we learn from how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected this house? Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected the house and Quraysh despite their weakness and their shirk. They were idol worshippers. And Abraha, who was coming from Habasha, was a Christian who worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here Allah supported the idol worshippers over the Christian. Why? Because of the justice. Why are you coming to destroy this home? Just for personal reasons, for your church to be, for people to do pilgrimage around your church and not the Kaaba. So you didn't have a valid reason. This is injustice. So Allah will take care of it. Another thing is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to maintain peace in the birthplace of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Arabs did not have a habit of recording the years. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ was born Am al-Fil, the year of the elephant. He was born this year. When this incident happened, after a little bit, this is when the Prophet ﷺ was born. So Quraysh also can never take credit for protecting the house of Allah. This is something that Allah is saying, I'm the one who protected this house. Okay? So these are some of the lessons that we get from just that surah. Let me see. I stopped your video, sis. All right. So those are the lessons from that surah. Now we're going to go to Surat Quraysh, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, for the comfort of Quraysh, just for the fact of comforting them. Li'ilafi, yes, here it says security, but in Arabic it's like to bring comfort to the heart, to bring peace to the heart, to bring like love and connection, just so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will comfort them and take care of them. Because Ibrahim alayhi salam made dua for them. What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And because the prophet of like the humanity will come through them, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took many measures to take care of Quraysh and their existence. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِإِيلَافِ قُرَيْشِ إِيلَافِهِمْ رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ, the journey of the winter and the summer. What happens in the winter and the summer? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will let them, in the winter, they would go south to Yemen because it's in the winter, it's really cold in Sham, right? In the winter, they would go south to Yemen and they would do business. and their caravans will come back, and they would live off of what they brought and that wealth and sell it for the next 6 months. And then in the summer, because it's cooler up in Sham, they would go up to the Sham to like, this is the journey that they would go, like they would go up to Bilad al-Sham, like all the countries that we call Jordan, Palestine, Syria today, okay, and Lebanon, and Iraq too, like all that area. They would go up there and they would do business, and they would come back with caravans. Those caravans, they would sell it, they will live off of it. So if you remember, like in Battle of Badr, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba, it was in the Battle of Uhud. It was the Battle of Badr that they, because when they were running away from Mecca, the Quraysh would not let them take their wealth with them. So they were like, okay, we're gonna stop and take our wealth back by stopping the caravan. But then they missed the caravan, and that caravan was coming obviously from Sham, right? So anyways, it escaped, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning what happened. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning this journey because it was their livelihood. It was how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala manifested the protection of the home. Like, this is how Allah answered the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam. The other thing is, so then what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want them to do, right? Allah is reminding them of these blessings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them, فَلْيَعْبُدُوا. So let them worship the Lord or the Rabb of this house, not the idols that they are the 360 idols that they have inside the Kaaba. Let them worship the Rabb who created this, the Rabb who allows them to do all of this. الَّذِي أَطْعَمَهُم مِّن جُوعٍ وَآمَنَهُم مِّن خَوْفٍ. The one who has protected them from hunger, and He protected them from fear. Like, He has given them security so that they're not in a state of fear, that nobody would ever invade them and be victorious over them, you know? And you know, the rest of the world, like if you look at world history at the time, all these different nations were either under the control of the Persians and the Romans, right? Or the Romans, one of the two. And the Persians and the Romans would fight over different, whatever they saw as like a powerful entity. They wanted to have control over a powerful country, powerful community. They wanted to have control. And the world was divided between them too, right? Imran, get some water, Hoya. Be a sa'ab. Okay, be a sa'ab, Hoya. So basically, but the Arabs, the Romans and the Persians were not interested in them because they saw them as people who didn't have anything. They didn't have, like, they didn't value their civilization. They didn't value their wealth. They didn't value anything. That, like, there was nothing that they saw as valuable in them. And obviously the land itself is not valuable, you know, because it's a desert. There's nothing there, right? So it shows you how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them with that as well. And so eventually when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came out and the message of Islam was spreading, the Romans were confused. They were like, those Arabs didn't have anything. Like, who are they? They didn't have a civilization. They didn't have leaders. They weren't in agreement. They were all tribes that fought with one another. Like, how are they claiming power today? You know, so it just shows you how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, Allah praises, and where is that hadith actually? Allah praises Quraysh. Let me see, where is so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, let me move this a little bit. The Prophet sallallahu says, "Inna Allah faddala Qurayshan bi sab'ati khisal." That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He had favored Quraysh because of with seven things, with seven characteristics, right? لم يعطيها أحدا قبلهم ولا يعطيها أحدا بعدهم. He never gave it to anybody before them, and He will never give it to anybody after them. What are these things? That the Khilafah is among them. That whenever the Prophet ﷺ passed away, the Arabs and the people agreed that the Khalifa would always be from Quraysh, and it was like that until it was like basically passed down two different generations. Sorry, until it was the Ottomans, I don't think were from Quraysh, but then eventually now we don't even have a khilafah, right? And then الحجابة فيهم والسقاية فيهم وأن النبوة فيهم. The al-hijaba is that thing that you have over the Kaaba. As-siqaya is that when people come from different parts of the world for the sake of the Hajj, for the sake of the pilgrimage, they are the ones to take care of their welcome them and take care of their drinking. And then nubuwwata fihim, that prophethood is among them. So Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is from the Quraysh. وَنُصِرُوا عَلَى الْفِيلِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them victory over the elephant. وَعَبَدُوا اللَّهَ سَبْعَ سِنِينَ لَمْ يَعْبُدْهُ أَحَدٌ غَيْرَهُمْ. And they worshipped Allah 7 years that no one on earth worshipped Allah but them. When was that? Allah Ta'ala A'lam. وَنَزَلَتْ فِيهِمْ سُورَةٌ لَمْ يُذْكَرْ فِيهَا. No one else, no. We did now, alhamdulillah, we do now.
Today now?
Yes, today now we do, alhamdulillah. Allah. هيقدم لنا القهوة
Let's turn the light on and see how it makes the shadow with
And no.
I want to see.
No, that's interrupting mommy.
No, I want to see how
You can see it. You can see it later. Okay, when
You
I'm done.
can see in the dark because the computer has a light and that is
No,
not
come with the name. Okay. The last one is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that a surah was revealed where they are mentioned and nobody else is mentioned in it. This is the Surat al-Quraysh, Surat Quraysh, right? So that's the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ tells us about the qualities or the characteristics that the Quraysh had that nobody else had. Obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give people honor so long as they establish the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, I was listening to this lecture where the Shaykh was saying the problem with the ummah today, the problem with the Muslim ummah today is like, yes, we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, we do not worship idols, alhamdulillah. We believe Allah is the creator of the heavens and the earth. We believe in Allah in so many different ways, but the problem is actions. We are 1.6 billion, but we are ineffective, and we are not, like, we don't have power in the world. Whereas when Islam started, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the believers, the Muslims, were very few in number, but they had the success Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises the believers. Like Allah says, He will support you, He will give you victory, He will make you like leaders on the earth. He will make you the ones that are able to like have power and bring about impact in the world. Why is all of that taken away? Because we have iman, but we don't have the amal. We don't act upon what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to act upon. So today when we think about where is Quraysh, where is the power and the honor of the Muslims, we have to ask ourselves, like, individually, where am I from worshiping Allah the way He wants me to worship Him? Where am I from meeting the obligations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Okay. We covered this slide, we covered this one, we talked about this one. So how are we blessed? Thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning and telling Quraysh about how He has taken care of them. And He's mentioning things that they probably will take for granted. You know, things that are big, like we all take for granted the fact that we are in peace, the fact that we're not at war. But then if we were struggling, if we were the ones who just came out of, we were refugees and we just came out of, subhanallah, was it my friend that was telling me the other day, she sent me this message and she was like, you know, why are, like when some people constantly complain about certain things in America, right? And yes, we all have the right to voice your opinion about what's not working and what's not right. But then she said, you know, like, we were refugees and we were brought here. And she said to me, like, I was there as a refugee. I remember being in a tent. I remember having no resources. And if you talk to recent or new coming immigrants, they're always in a state of like gratitude, like sincere gratitude. But then when time goes by, we forget the fact that there are some things we should still be grateful for. Of course, you do voice your opinion if there is a problem. If there is like injustice, you voice your opinion. But at the same time, like, to never forget how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has protected you and has brought you to a place where you have that, you're not worried about your own life. You're not worried that your house, like a missile might hit your home and you might be destroyed. So alhamdulillah for that. So here, these hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is telling us about the importance of being mindful of these blessings that many people take for granted. The first one is, the one among you who wakes up secure in his property, healthy in his body, and has his food for the day, it is as though the whole world were brought to him. It's like you're like the king, you know? You're healthy, you're safe, you have a home, you have a shelter, you're not missing anything. Alhamdulillah. Because why? You're thinking we have to be able to think about people who have less than us, right? But then we wake up and our situation is that what? We complain, oh, it's a bad day, or I'm having like, look at this car, it cut me off. Like, why is this person driving like this? There was the bagel I wanted, I ran out of it. All these little things that are really like meaningless, you know, so not saying alhamdulillah for the bigger things, you know. The second hadith is to be mindful, to take advantage of 5. I'm gonna sit down. Oops. Yes. Kaaba over there, mashallah. Wow. Oh my God, you guys have to see this. You see that? Imran put up a curtain box, and he's saying this is the Kaaba. Oh, so cute. Alhamdulillah. In this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, take advantage of 5 before 5. Your health, your youth, like your young age, before your old age. And we know why. Like when you're older, you don't have as much time, as much energy, as much physical energy to get at things done as you are when you are young, you know. This is why it's like important too that people go for Hajj when they're young before they get old, right? And then your health before your illness, your riches before your poverty, your free time before your work or before you get busy, and your life before your death. How do you taking advantage of these things mean you're showing gratitude for them, that your time is not wasted because you're conscious of the fact that Allah gave you this hour to do what you want with it, you know. And there might come a time where you don't have that time. You don't have a day off. You don't have like few hours to yourself. So taking advantage of it, showing Allah gratitude, is by you using it in the things that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in this one, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that there's 2 blessings in which many people take for granted. And what is that? Free time and like free time and health, you know. So right now, like I could tell you, like alhamdulillah, I'm healthy, but being like this heavy with this pregnancy and being in this stage, all I'm thinking about is like, once I feel lighter, once I feel like I'm done and I'm more comfortable again, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do that, and I hope I do it. I hope I'm really like grateful for the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring me back to my health, to get back to so many things that I was taking for granted, like the ability of doing it, I was taking it for granted, you know. And so the way we show Allah gratitude is to worship, is to use these things in what pleases Him and in what takes care of us, because that eventually pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, this is interruption. This is interruption. I'm going to come back to you guys and see if there's any questions. But this ends it for this surah. Any questions about Surah Al-Fil and Surah Quraysh? Or how does it apply to us? Like, you know I gave a general statement, but we've talked in, like, I think we'll have more sessions that talk about how to actually live gratitude. What does it look like to live in a state of gratitude, to act upon gratitude? That's why I didn't delve deeper in it, because there's other surahs that do that much more, inshallah. All right, so thank you for waiting, you guys. Inshallah, we'll go ahead and start with Surat Al-Humaza. So let's go ahead and listen to it as well.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. ويل لكل همزة لمزة الذي جمع مالا وعدده يحسب أن ماله أخلده كلا لينبذن في الحطمة وما أدراك ما الحطمة نار الله الموقدة التي تطلع على الأفئدة إنها عليهم مؤصدة في عمد ممددة.
All right. So this surah, mashallah, like it's one of those surahs that somehow, you know how like we often have surahs that we always go to when we are in salah. Somehow this surah is that for me. I don't know why, but it's like, it's just, I used to be, I think it was just automatic, like so this surah is also a Makki surah. The majority, except for like maybe one or two or three actually, there's difference of opinions. The majority of the surahs in Juz Amma are actually Makki, right? So this one is also Makki surah, and the purpose of revelation, the tafsir had a number of reasons, like that said basically that it was revealed because of these individuals, Al-Akhnas ibn Shurayq, Walid ibn al-Mughira, and Ubayya ibn Khalaf. Those, like, or that it was just a general surah because those specific men were known for backbiting, for spreading, for talking evil about others, especially Al-Ashraq ibn Al-Akhnas ibn Shurayq. And Walid ibn Mughira was specifically used to specifically talk bad and evil about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, but then there's the other opinion that it was a general surah that was addressing a general behavior. What's interesting is that this surah is talking about societal diseases that stem from a sick heart, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes, and I don't have it in there, is one of the objectives is that Allah is telling us what He will do to those people, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish them. So this is the first surah that where we will talk about punishment in the hellfire. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيْلٌ لِكُلْ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيم, in the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, very specifically merciful. وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ, woe or wail, or that valley in hellfire is for every single humazatin lumaza, backbiter and slanderer. And we'll talk about the details of that, what that means. الَّذِي جَمَعَ مَالًا وَعَدَّدَهُ, the one who collects money, hoards it, and he counts it. Humaza basically, if you see some of my notes in here, is the slanderer, the backbiter, the one who insults others and points out to their faults and their mistakes or deformities. This is done whether they are like in their absence and behind their back. So the humaza does not do it in front of the person's face. Whereas the lumaza, they will slander you, they will criticize you, they will do it in front of your face. And sometimes that is accompanied with actions, with behavior. So they will either do it with their eyes, with their lips, with shaking their head and showing up, like belittling you in action in front of you or behind your back towards, like, with others, right? الذي جمع مالا وعدده, the one who hoards money, collects it, and he counts it over and over and over again. Basically, Muhammad ibn Ka'b, one of the scholars of the Quran, he said that this is for the one who during the whole day, he's busy making money, he's busy with his wealth, and then at night, and he keeps counting it, hoping that it will increase and increase and increase. But then at night, he sleeps and never wakes up for the salah, never is like basically attentive for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calling him to pray. So, يَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَالَهُ أَخْلَدَ. Why does this person do this? They have given into the oldest trick of shaitan, where he tells them that you will live forever if you have all this wealth. He thinks that he will be known forever, live forever because he has all this wealth. Kalla, rather, no, nay, or it's not going to be. Laysa al-amru kadhalik. It's not going to be like that. He will be thrown into the crusher. Al-Hutama. What is Hutama? Hutama is that which crushes, like it crushes the bones. It's the type of fire when they are thrown in it, their bones actually crush. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةِ. What will make you know what is the hutama? What do you know about it? It's this severe pain, severe punishment. Now Allahi al-muqada, it is the fire of Allah that has been kindled. And it has been kindled when? A long time ago. The hellfire has been burning and burning and burning since Allah created it. And it's the hottest thing that has ever been created. Like parts of it, the hellfire tells Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I'm so hot that parts of me are eating the other parts. Like the severity of the intensity of the heat and also the cold area is getting too much that I'm eating myself up. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed it to breathe twice. And from that, like in the summer when it breathes, that's how we have the severe heat. And in the winter when it breathes, this is how we have the severe cold. And this is a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now this kindled fire, this hot fire, what is it doing? تَطَّلِعُ عَلَى الْأَفْئِدَةِ. It looks, or it laps to that, like it comes onto the hearts. Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioning the hearts specifically? Because these diseases, like hoarding money, belittling others and talking about others, they are diseases that stem from the heart. So in the tafsir, it mentioned that the fire will eat their body up until it reaches their hearts, and then it goes back again into their body, or that it actually just starts there, because that's where the diseases were coming from. It was coming from the heart. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the surah is also calling us to check the state of our hearts. And we will talk more about that. إِنَّهَا عَلَيْهِمْ مُؤْصَدَةٌ, that it will be completely sealed, closed up on them. They cannot get out of it. It's completely locked down. فِي عَمَدٍ مُمَدَّدَةٍ, in extended columns like pillars. That the hellfire has pillars where people are chained up to these pillars so they can never get out of it. Chained up in like every way possible. The angels are guarding it. The gates are huge. They are huge, but the gates are also huge, so they can never get out. And one would wonder, like, why is this severe punishment being mentioned in the Quran? Specifically, like for me, I know personally, I get, I'm usually more drawn to verses of mercy and Jannah and Rahmah and all that. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't only give us that. Allah gives us both. Allah gives us the hope and the mercy, but He also tells us about the pain and the punishment that is going to come. So that we may be driven by fear. Like, I don't want to fall into that. If somebody, you know, when we talk about anxiety and fear, and we say that, you know, like having anxiety and fear is a good thing. It's a protection for you. If you were fearless, you will fall into anything. That it's a protective factor for the human being, right? Obviously, an excessive amount is not good, but then this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is appealing to that fear for humans to want to protect themselves, to not fall into harm when He tells us about the hellfire. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not make us among the people that are ever tested with the hellfire. Now, something Ibn Qayyim says, and I'll read it in English. He basically says that whoever lacks an aware and conscious heart regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the words of the Quran will cross him without him reflecting and thinking deeply with them. So he does not benefit from the verses because he has damaged his heart and became like a person that has no heart. How do you know if a person will take advantage of something? Like, our heart is where we receive information. If my heart is corrupt and filled with sins, and it doesn't remember Allah, and it doesn't cry when the verses of Allah are mentioned, then my heart is like, my heart needs work. That things have covered up my heart to the point where it's now rusted, and the reminders or the benefits are not like touching it. So in this surah specifically, Allah is going to be speaking about things that we all need to ask ourselves and question ourselves. Do I fall into this? Do I do this? If our hearts are not moved and if our hearts are not conscious after this, there is a problem. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to pay attention and to be mindful. So the verses of the Quran past him, or the verses about the universe, or the verses about our nafs, and these surahs are about our nafs and our hearts, right? But he is in complete heedlessness to ponder. So what I'm hoping we could do is to ask ourselves today, it's like to use the surah as a personal reflection. Where is the state of my heart when it comes to the issues that this surah will address, inshallah? So the punishing of the heart, we already talked about that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ, we talked about what humaza and lumaza means. It's a threat of punishment for every single person who does this. And we talked about what that means. But basically, they do this with the intention of hurting others. And in Arabic, they call it at-ta'nu fi nas, like to literally to put a dagger in people. You know, that if somebody is backbiting somebody else, they're hurting them the same way that taking a dagger and putting it and stabbing them would hurt them. And sometimes they do it telling the truth. Sometimes they do it telling a lie. You know, and when it's a lie, it's called namima. That a person is actually spreading false information, and that's the worst of the talking about others. Ibn Abbas says they are the ones that walk around with namima. Namima is that made up news who want to disrupt the love between people, and they desire for the innocent to be slandered. I don't want to even give examples, but we all know people that, you know, let me tell you guys a story about when I was younger. There was a girl, you know how teens are, right? Like they, especially girls, they want to create groups and they want to have loyalties, right? So there was, I remember I was best friends with a girl, and she was an Iraqi friend of mine. She was like my best friend. This other girl who did not like her, and one day that girl that didn't like her, there were issues between them. I was always not the person in the middle of like drama, but I was friends with people, I was friends with everybody. So even though these two groups were not, like, they didn't like each other, but I was friends with all of them, right? So this girl, I remember, she used to do what they call like reading cards. She was somebody that would read somebody's hands, and she would tell them what was going on. She was a bit freaky, Obviously, I know now how that happened, but when I was younger, I remember feeling like, La ilaha illallah, where is she getting this information from? But anyways, so one day she read cards for me, and then she said to me, this person does not want anything good for you. And I was like, who is this person? She's like, they're trying to harm you. And I was like, who's this person? She said, I don't want to say, because I don't want you to think that I'm intentionally trying to talk about your friend. But I'm going to let her look at the card. So she lets this other girl sitting next to her look at the card. And then the girl says, oh, it's, so-and-so. And I was like, La ilaha, of course I didn't believe it, But then 2 days later, me and my friend got into an argument, and I said, like, oh, she was telling the truth. You were trying to do this and blah, blah, blah. Like, I didn't believe it, but still what that woman said had an impact in the heart, And it was like, it created something in me, just hearing it, like not even believing it, just hearing it, it left something in the heart. So what Ibn Abbas means is that they are spreading the type of information and the type of news that makes people hate one another and not be welcoming towards one another. They want to stay away from one another. What is a community or a society looks like when people come, or let's say in a workplace, or in the community, in the masjid, just to see, like you in a family where people are talking about one another. So when they see each other, they might not really talk about it, but somebody else had given them information or news about you, or something you might have, they say, like you said something about them. And so they interact with you based on that knowledge, right? This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surat Al-Hujurat, and this is like many of the verses we're talking about today come from this surah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when someone comes to you with certain news, always clarify. Always clarify. Don't just go with it. Don't just trust the first person that comes to you. Because human beings there are people that are, like, they do namima. There are people that backbite and they slander and they are lying. They're not telling the truth. Why do they do this? This is out of a sickness in their hearts. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let me see what I have here. Okay, how is it described in the Quran? Like, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about this behavior in the Quran? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Hammazin masha'in binamim. This individual who is a backbiter, who goes around people, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning this in Surah Qalam, and he's basically going to mention like serious punishment that will come their way as well. They spread slander, they spread fake news. When you're standing at the checkout lines at supermarkets, those magazines, is it called tabloids? Oh, so-and-so, this has happened to them, and this is what they did this weekend, and they usually do this to celebrities. Like, celebrities are not human beings who have emotions, but so basically, like, who gave us the right to talk about celebrities behind their back and spread their news and talk about like their business and sometimes say made up stuff about them? Still, like, they are part of the society, and we don't do that. And in Surah Al-Hujurat, verses 10 to 13, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the believers are brothers, so reconcile between your brothers and remain conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that you may receive mercy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says, O you who believe, no people should ridicule other people, for they may be better than them. And no group of women should ever ridicule another group of women, because they also may be better than them. Nor shall you all slander one another, nor shall you all insult one another with names like لا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق. Evil is a return to wickedness after having attained faith. Like, after Allah guided you and gave your hearts like iman, how do you go back to this like fisq, like wickedness, like evil doing? How do you do that? Those are the wrongdoers. In the next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O you who believe, avoid most suspicion, because some suspicion is sinful." Usually, why do we backbite people? We have doubts, we have doubts that we allow, like they come into our thoughts and we entertain them and we let them go and we talk about it until we start to actually believe it. And do not spy on one another. So you had the thoughts, so what did you do? Now you followed it up with action, right? And you spied on somebody. Nor backbite one another. Take this information and start talking about that individual as if it happened, as if it's reality. Would any of you like to eat the flesh of their dead brother? Would you or would you hate it? Like, so remain mindful of Allah. Allah is most relenting, most merciful. So I remember when I first started practicing, I was sleeping on the couch one day and I woke up, I was eating a dead bird. Okay, I don't know how, why, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. And I remember freaking out when I woke up. And the first thing that came to my mind was like this ayah, like, do you want to eat the flesh of your brother? Was I backbiting? Was I not? Allah Ta'ala, but I was freaked out and I was thinking, like, this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us sometimes, It was just a simple dream. It was a weird dream. It was scary. Like, I don't know what situation brought it up, but it was automatic. Like the ayah came to my mind. And this, I wasn't reading it. I didn't hear it. It just, boom, happened in my ear. So what does it look like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says we're eating the flesh of your, like, you're eating the flesh of your brother? Let's watch this together.
شفتي دي البنت؟ أمك من واحد تتزوج ثاني. شفتي يا ولي مش حاولة بنفسها؟ لا ده منظر تيجي في الجنب. لا ولا عادي وصفتها
And let not one of you, some of you, backbite others. Do you want to eat the flesh of your brother while he's dead? What happened here? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is giving us a visual, What are your thoughts on that image of what you saw? It may come back to you. If this was the first time you saw that, or if this is the second time you see it, whatever, what are your thoughts on that video? How does it make you feel? In the next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, like, this is all in Surat Al-Hujurat, and in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing, like, the way a society is made, the way he starts with, like, love and brotherhood and obviously sisterhood, and to reconcile between people and to make sure hearts are good towards one another. And then these are the diseases that are in the society that would, like, obviously not allow for this brotherhood to exist, right? The last ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O people, we created you from male and female and made you races and tribes that you may know one another. The best among you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is talking about how like we're made up like different, you know, like whether we're male and female, different communities, different backgrounds, different languages, different skin colors, different tribes. And all of that is not because one is better than the other. It's simply just like so we could get to know one another, so we can know, you know, like, hey, I'm Somali, I'm from East Africa. What are your practices in West Africa? What are your practices in Asia? What do you do in Australia? Like, how do you live your life, and what's interesting? You know, just to get to know one another and benefit from one another, the cultural, like the things that we excel at, right? But when we use it, when we become people who are valuing one another based on those differences, or will we value one another based on where you fit in a society, the society is not healthy, right? This is how we have racism. We have this in Somalia, we have this in America, we have this in like where I grew up in the UAE, whereas like in the UAE, it was like, are you rich, and are you a citizen? Are you muwatin? And if you're not, then you are not of like that class, of the suitable class, right? And certain people from certain countries are looked down upon, you know? And then what does that allow them to do? Like abuse them and take away their rights. Same thing in Somalia. Like the reason why we're all dispersed over the world is we are a tribal community, and each tribe prides themselves in being the best. And being the best means everybody else is below me and I am above. And so leadership has to be with me, not logical, you know, to the point where we're not going to have peace unless my people are up here and up above, you know. And every single tribe believes this. Every single tribe in Somalia believes this. Same thing in America. Like you have the privileged white people who came here, who with power started to put people in like take the rights of people, dehumanize them, take away their rights, take away their dignity, and continue to do that in so many different ways that are like that may not be even apparent anymore, you know. So let me see what some of your responses are. This is the first time I saw it and I'm disgusted. I'm sorry, it made you sick to your stomach. I'm sorry, disgusted by it. It reminds me of how gruesome and horrible of a deed it truly is. We lose that severity because of how normalized it is in our society. Absolutely. Normalized, and also like if you saw that, you know, these group of women were just sitting there laughing and having a good time and not even realizing like what they're doing is so severe. So severe. Is this done? Wallahi, like, I don't know. Call me naive. No, I'm not naive. I'm a human being and I also make mistakes. And I know I have fallen into error in terms of backbiting before. But I think there is a certain level of backbiting that I never even thought was possible, where we belittle people or talk about people's private business, you know, like the kind of furniture they buy or the kind of home they live in. And like when I witnessed that one day, and I remember going why are we doing that, and how are we doing that, and how is this even justified? So I'm not no self-righteousness. This is something we all fall into, you know. Was it Ibn Taymiyyah who said that even the righteous people will backbite, and how do they do it? And they will say something like, oh, may Allah have mercy on that person, like they're really struggling. And when you say may Allah have mercy on them, like you're making dua for them, but like really what you're doing is you're trying to belittle, or you're trying to get others to talk about them. So like being conscious in the environments that we're in, the kind of conversations when the people we hang around with the most, what are our conversations about? You know, do we talk about ourselves, our growth, our situations? Are we vulnerable with one another, or are we talking about others and pointing fingers at others? Gotta go. Oh, assalamu alaikum, Dominique. Yes, we'll definitely get into how do we avoid this, inshallah. This is how we avoid it. Somebody says something about somebody, really just cut that conversation, like be direct, you know. I am direct with some people, and obviously with some other people it's kind of harder, like we are like, oh, you know, like I can't say to stop to you, but to be direct, to change the subject, you know. I called somebody like a few weeks ago, and I did it like out of just to reach out to a family member and say salam, but this person like is always like getting into the other people's business, and wallahi, like 3 times conversations about other people came up, and what did I do? I distracted myself with my son, and then I would come back and say, oh yeah, so how are you? And then it was clear that I wasn't going forward with any, like there was not going to be no fun in talking to me about anything. Usually backbiting happens because the other person enjoys it and they ask more questions, and they, you know, so shutting it down, you know, just change the subject, you know, if we're not able to be direct. And we'll talk more about what is going on with us. Okay, so in the Sunnah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, let me share my screen so you guys could see this. In the Sunnah, the Prophet ﷺ said, like, do you know what is backbiting? And they said, no, what is it, Ya Rasulullah? He said, saying something about your brother that he dislikes. And then they asked, like, what if that thing was in him? Like, it's true, we're not lying. He said, if it's true, then you are backbiting him. And if it's not true, then you have slandered him. You're doing namima, you know? You're basically fabricating about him. And then the Prophet ﷺ passed by 2 graves, and he said, they're both being punished, and their punishment was something very easy to avoid. What was it? One of them used to walk about and spreading malicious gossip, namima. They used to go around and tell others, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? Their whole life was spent on talking about others, and this other person did not clean themselves properly after urinating. And so, like, these are 2 important things, and because of it, there's punishment in the grave for it. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for anything and anyone we might have backbited in our lives, and that we become conscious of everything, every conversation that comes out of our mouth, and who are we talking to, what are we talking about, and what is the intention, what we're going to be talking. We're going to also talk about when is it okay to actually do speak about somebody? When is it okay? What makes it okay? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, whoever has wronged his brother with regard to his honor or anything else, let him seek his forgiveness today before there will be a dinar, no dirham. And if he has any good deeds to his credit, they will be taken from him in a manner. So basically, on the day of judgment, a person say they are about to go to Jannah. You know, they have crossed the Surat, right? They have all these great deeds. They are righteous, pious, amazing, blah, 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 right? They're about to go to Jannah, and then there comes a place in the Akhirah called Al-Qantara. Al-Qantara is like a bridge, right? And it connects, like, it basically goes from after the Sirat, that like long line that we cross, which is the most difficult part of the Akhirah. And it goes, like, you go across this bridge and you go to Jannah, right? So people will be at the Qantara, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will like bring people who harmed one another, you know, like this person will come, he's about to go to Jannah, but then they cursed this person, they backbited this person, they took the wealth of this person, they hurt so many people that people come and take away from their good deeds to the point where they have no more good deeds, that they are deserving of going back to hellfire, getting punished, and then going into Jannah. So this is serious, and this is not something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will just forgive for the person. The person has to seek forgiveness for it. Backbiting is considered one of the major sins. It's not a minor sin, it's a major sin, right? And how do you seek protection, or how do you seek forgiveness? you have to get it from the person that you did this to. But then Ibn Taymiyyah, he says that if we went to people and we say, hey, forgive me, I have backbited you, it might create more animosity in the heart. So what should you do? Simply make dua for the person, speak well about them in the places where you spoke ill of them, right? So like consciously always make dua for people. And there are, sometimes we are tested with some people where we just don't do well together. We don't like each other. Something stands in the way between you and this person. And wallahi, like I've personally had that, where this person is a good person. Hopefully, inshallah, I'm a good person. But then like something is not working, What do you do? What do you do in that case? And we'll talk about, there's a dua that I have for us, inshallah, that we can all learn and continuously say. So backbiting and slander, why is it so evil? Aisha radiallahu anha, she once called the woman short. She described the woman as like that short woman. And the Prophet ﷺ said to her, you said something that if it was dropped in the oceans, it would have corrupted it. Just that one word, that the believer is not the one who backbites others, is not the one who slanders others. That what is arrogance, we will talk about it. Okay, sorry, some of these things I have them in another slide. So remember how I was just telling you that a person will come on the day of judgment and they will be bankrupt? That's the person. The Prophet ﷺ said they will come on the day of judgment with a lot of wealth, but then they will become muflis, like bankrupt, because of what they have done to other people. The effect of one word, different ways it is done. I think I've already mentioned this, like where you make dua for somebody, but your intention is that they are talked about, or that, you say, have you seen what happened to so-and-so? You're trying to basically you're enticing others to start the conversation, you're not doing it yourself, right? Ruling and backbiting and slander, we said this, it's a major sin. The punishment and the expiation, we already talked about it as well. The many faces of backbiting, we could do it through the hands, like I'm sitting here and I'm just like, you are not looking at me, and I just look at the group and I say, ignore her, like she's useless, or I do it through my eyes, look what she's about to do, or look, she's going to do what I told you, and you do it in like a low voice, or that, your body gives gestures that, like you speak with your eyes and you do things with your face, I think we might have seen it, and it might be more obvious in some cultures than other cultures. It's verbal, it's hidden ways of backbiting, making dua, praising someone while knowing nothing good will be said about them, making dua for someone with the intention of belittling them. I think I've already mentioned that listening to backbiting is also a major sin. You're not supposed to listen to it. You're supposed to get up. You're supposed to not be part of it, And so what is the alternative? What is the alternative to backbiting? So the root problem of backbiting comes from kibr, which is the most serious disease of the heart, where the Prophet ﷺ tells us that no one will be entered into Jannah that has kibr. A companion asked him, Ya Rasulullah, we all like to look good and dress well. He was thinking like, is this arrogance that I just like to dress up, So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, no, arrogance is that you deny the truth and you belittle people. You deny the truth and you belittle people. So in your heart, you're belittling somebody. You think that you're better than them, And this is like the first sin. This is the sin of Iblis, when he said, I'm not going to prostrate to Adam because I am better than him. How do we create supportive and loving community? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the believers are brothers of one another, and that we reconcile between the people. And that what does brotherhood mean? It means that we feel supported, we feel loved, we feel like we are part of the community. Doing these things takes away from that, I was watching one time a video, so you guys know, like, you know, in cities where there's a lot of Somali, a lot of like big Somali community in Ohio, in Canada, in Toronto, in Minnesota, with like there's an increase in young boys going to jail, going to prison, being involved in gangs, being involved in crimes, you know, losing, like mothers losing, or parents, families losing their boys to crime and to drugs and to alcohol and things like that, right? So there was a conference in Toronto where these women got together, and they're talking about how serious it's getting. And there was a panel of women who experienced they're like losing their sons to the system, right? So one of them, she said, one of the major problems is that we don't feel supported in our community. Where when my son starts to act up, instead of calling family members and the aunties and saying like, I need help with this kid, and seeking the community's help, we are so scared of being judged, and so we keep it to ourselves. So instead of finding help, you're afraid of being judged, so you keep it to yourself. Because then people will say, oh, she couldn't raise her son, she couldn't take care of him, look what she's doing, she's a horrible mother. Instead of helping you with a difficult situation, you're being judged, right? So out of fear of that, we don't seek help, and then more problems happen. So where is that coming from? It's coming from the fact that we are afraid of others talking about us. Is this true? Does this happen? Yes, it does happen, right? Another thing is when the other day I was, you know, like in US schools, we have this rise in bullying, right? Whether it is bullying, face-to-face bullying, or cyberbullying. And I was reading in one of my textbooks that 42 states in the US came up with anti-bullying laws, but they have been ineffective. What is bullying? Kids belittling other kids, talking about each other, spreading rumors, to the point where, like, you know, kids are committing suicide because of videos being taken of them and it going viral, or people speaking about them and the way they feel. Like, just last year, my friend was working at a school where a kid committed suicide because of what other kids were doing to him on Snapchat. You know, so this is increasing, this is happening, it's increasing, and they don't have a way of stopping it. But then one of the ways to go against it, you know, like the laws, like specific laws are not being helpful, punishments are not being helpful. What is being helpful is to create a community, is to create like something as simple as having a morning check-in with all the students where they all sit together and they talk and they connect and they talk about their struggles, and they talk about, like, you call them like healing circles, or you call them community circles, like morning meeting, where they just take 10-15 minutes in the classroom where they connect with one another. When you do that, that child who wanted to bully others will have the support. Like, they will feel heard. Another child who is being bullied will also feel comfortable enough to express themselves, and it creates a community, right? So how are we doing that in our masajid? How are we doing that in our families? How are we doing it in our communities? Are we approaching people by validating their issues, by saying like, hey, you know what? I'm here to help. I believe in you. I know you're strong. I know you got this. I know this is like a temporary like problem, that you're not going through this alone. This happens. Because as it is, when somebody's going through a difficulty, especially with like with things at home, or with things with their family or with their children, they're already criticizing themselves and judging themselves. So how are we creating a community where we support one another? You know, societal communities, values, I think we already talked about this, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that taqwa and like having God consciousness is what makes people good. It's what makes people praiseworthy. It's not your tribe. It's not your wealth. It's not your citizenship. It's not the country you come from. It's not the color of your skin. But how is it in our communities? Another thing is like we maybe have been raised in communities where competition is praised, and you're always being told to go for the best, get the best house, get the best degree, get the best job, get the best, be the best in everything. So that leads to something like an emotion where you want the best for you, but not for others, because you feel like you have to be above everybody else. So how do we cultivate this togetherness, rising together type of attitude? I love this statement by Sheikh Muhammad al-Sharif where he says, don't ask Allah to make you the best, ask Allah to make you among the best. Why? Because others don't have to fail for you to succeed, you know? And so when we are thinking we want others to fail, we're going to take measures to make sure that they fail, you know? Fix your thoughts of others. Do you have suspicion? Do you have assumptions about people? Like, so this requires us like really tuning in, us really paying attention to where our thoughts are coming from. You know, is this real? Did this happen? Did this, like, or is this your emotion? Like, so you call somebody, they don't return your call in 3 days, and you're like, oh my God, they hate me. Oh my God, you know, they don't want to talk to me. She must be upset about something I said to her, or something I did to her, or she doesn't want to be my friend. She could have been just sick, right? But these are thoughts that come, and what do? We entertain them, right? So already things are in our hearts, and we don't, like, we shouldn't be letting them get bigger. Do we judge the intentions of others? I remember Sheikh Yasir Qadi saying, like, whenever we judge the intention of somebody else, something is wrong with our intentions. So somebody is doing really well in the community, instead of saying, MashaAllah, Tabarakallah, I appreciate the work that you're doing, Alhamdulillah, like your organization is able to accomplish this, we sit there and we say, oh, you know, like, we can't, like, they're doing this to get a name, they're doing this to get donations, or, you know, like, I remember, like, you hear horrible things, and you're like, did you know, somebody started this organization because they're jealous of me, and what I do, why couldn't they just come and help me? Who made you, who allowed you to go and judge somebody else's intention? Why not make dua for them and ask Allah to bless their work? Because when you do that, Allah also blesses your own work. So you hear these things, and unfortunately, like, as a Muslim minority here in America, instead of supporting, alhamdulillah, like in Minnesota, I feel like there's a lot more support, but there's always like room for improvements. Like in checking the status, like the state of the organizations in the community. Do they support one another? Do they help one another? Do they work for one cause, even though they're doing it differently, you know? Or is everybody trying to be at the top themselves, you know? And then accepting people's differences, accepting that somebody is different than you. So I was thinking the other day about how when I got married, I remember I had one of my Quran teachers come to the wedding party that I had before I left Ohio, and she gave a talk, and the only thing I remember from that talk was, like, you know how in the Quran, the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we have made you, we basically gave you, like, من آياته أن جعل لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا, that is from the signs of Allah that He gave you partners that you may find love and tranquility with them. The next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the differences in the night and the day, you know? And so she made the connection, and she said, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talk about this right after this ayah? Is to show us that when you get into your marriage, you will be different. You will be different than your husband. But then we come in expecting them to be like us, expecting them to want what we want, to love the way we love, to show affection the way we show affection, to show love the way we show love, to show, you know, like, to want to do with their time what we want to do with our time. We expect them to be the way we are, right? So that leads us to be frustrated. And wallahi, like, for me and for so many women I speak with about marriage, that becomes a big thing. Like, why can't we just accept into this individual for their uniqueness, for the way they are, for just, they are different than you, they're not like you? Because what happens is, because we get so frustrated, we want to talk about it. We want to, I can't believe she said this or she did this. Why would she do that? Well, she's different. She must have a reason for doing it. And this is when Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he says, like, make 70 excuses for your brother. If you cannot think of anything, just say, maybe there is a reason I do not know. Maybe I don't know. And Stephen Covey in his book, like The 7 Habits, he always says, seek first. That's one of the, I think it's the first or the second one. I think it's the second one, where he says, seek first to understand, then to be understood. First, try to understand where the person is coming from, then express your need and your expectation and say, oh, well, this is what I was hoping. I know this is what you wanted. This is what I was hoping. What does that do? It makes you somebody who's willing to make space for other people's sincere intentions, sincere purpose, sincerity in their behavior, and like accepting them for being different, Then what about trust? We're always thinking, but how can I trust people? How can I? And this is in every relationship, whether it is marriage or like sisterhood, brotherhood, community, organizations. We're always thinking like, I have to be careful. I have to be careful. Like how would I be able to trust this person? And this is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us an important principle, is that our trust is with Allah, not with individuals, not with organizations, not with like even family, not with people that we love and care about the most, So let go of some of these expectations, let go of these suspicions, and just trust the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of you. This does not mean that you don't voice your opinion and what's bothering you, but it's like, I do it in a way where I'm still expecting the best from Allah. I'm expecting to be protected by Allah, not by this individual or this organization or whatever it is that I'm being bothered with. So when is it okay to engage in backbiting? It's never okay to backbite, right? It's a major sin. But then the scholars of Islam say there are certain situations that make it okay, but then that depends on the purpose. And they bring it all together in this poem, 2 lines of a poem. Basically, it is not considered backbiting if you are seeking justice. So you go to somebody who's capable of doing something about your situation. You are seeking justice because dhulm has been done to you, injustice has been done to you by the person you're talking about. And then you're identifying. So for example, even though it's not best to use these terms, like you say, Abdullah ibn Maktoum, the blind man. The fact that you identified him by his blindness is okay because he is known for it. What comes up is that person okay with that label? And what's best is to not use these labels anyway, right? But your intention was not to belittle that person. You're identifying them, right? There's a funny one, actually, I remember learning the other day. There was a fly. There was like flies. There was a lot of fly problems in my house, right? So I remember getting so upset and saying, "Ya kalb," like, "Oh, dog," and it's not a dog, it's a fly, But then "Ya kalb" is a phrase, derogatory phrase, right? It's used as a derogatory way to label something, right? So there was a story Sheikh Yasser Birjas told us, as a father and a son. They were both scholars, and the son got frustrated with a dog, and he called them, "Ya kalb," and then his father called out from the bathroom, and he said, "La yajuz," it is not permissible. And he says, "What do you mean? He is a dog." He says, al-asl, al-asl adam al-tahqir, that you do it, you must do it without belittling. So I was thinking, when I called the fly kelp, dog, like I was belittling it, I was angry, and that's the way he did it. So it's not like permissible to identify out of belittling, out of anger, out of, then your intention is not to just identify. Warning of a problem. So let's say somebody approaches you about, wanting to marry their daughter to somebody or doing business with somebody, and know something about that person that they're seeking advice about, where you wouldn't recommend them, you know, or you see somebody that is about to start a business and you say, hey, listen, I wouldn't recommend that you do it with this person. Or that somebody is very showing of a serious sin, like they are publicly committing some sins. So you're able to speak about it. They're publicly doing it. And what is your intention? Your intention is to warn. Your intention is to say, don't do this, or stay away from this, or stay away from that person. Seeking advice in regards to someone. So for example, is it permissible for me to come and talk to you about the issues I'm having with my siblings and the issues that I'm having with my parents? Yes. Why? Because even though I'm exposing something that they might have done, I'm seeking advice. And I'm doing this in the hopes. So this is the thing. When you, in counseling and in coaching, the intention is always to focus on what the person wants. The person that you're telling, they're able to do something. They're not just going to listen to you and so that you could pour your heart out. No, they're going to talk to you and listen to you and then tell you what is best for you to do. It's always focused on you. It's always focused on the problem, and it's always focused on a solution for that problem. It's not just, I just want to talk about it and feel better, you know? Seeking help to stop a sinner, obviously that kind of goes with seeking help to stop a sinner or somebody who's spreading a bid'ah, you know, this is has severe consequences in the community. Lastly, this is a dua and inspiration. The Prophet ﷺ, I love this dua, I love this hadith. He says that the believers are like a structure. Al-mu'minuna kal-bunyan, like this. And he pointed, he clasped his fingers together to show that we are like a structure. You know, يَشُدُّ بَعْضُهُ بَعْضًا, that parts of it are strengthening the other parts. So what does that mean? You know, we're like partners. It's like, you know, we're partners in the community. We're partners in our organizations. We're partners in our relationships. We're partners in our family relationships. You know, I remember recently somebody contacted me about needing help with an issue. And it was a husband, a wife complaining about a husband. And it was I remember the foundation to it came, it felt like this individual was not treating, this couple were not treating one another as partners. That each one was just I'm here, we're enemies of one another. So how do you know about that? How do you find that out? It's realizing, am I trying to strengthen this person when I'm addressing them, when I'm talking about them, when I'm looking for solutions to our problems? Am I thinking in terms of we are like this? Or am I thinking we are like this and I'm trying to make sure that we don't, we just can we just stay like this? You know, how can we get anything done together if this is how we are, you know? So I liked how the Prophet ﷺ put his hands together. It's we're supposed to strengthen one another. And then, so there's this dua. It's also in Surat, actually, this is in Surat Al-Hashr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, or basically there's 3 verses that are one after the other. First, Allah talks about the muhajirin and what they do and their qualities. And then Allah talks about the Ansar, the people of Medina, and their qualities. Then this last one is talking about the believers that came afterwards. And they make this dua. They say, oh Allah, forgive us and forgive our brothers that came before us who were believers. Meaning we believe, because we're believers, we are brothers of one another. They might have done mistakes, but please forgive them and let it go, accept it for them. So we make dua for them. And so the best thing we do is we make dua for our brothers and sisters. And that because of the iman, we are brothers and sisters that are closer than even brothers and sisters who are blood brothers and sisters because of our faith. وَلَا تَجْعَلْ فِي قُلُوبِنَا غِلًّا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, and do not let in our hearts be any hatred or animosity towards those who have iman. رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ رَؤُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. What I said earlier, when somebody is tested. Like you're tested with this person. They're good. You know they are good. They have great qualities, but something about you and them just does not click. You know, and like I've experienced this before, and I know this dua is what helped me, because you're like, this person is good. There's nothing wrong, but our ways are not the same. And I'm irritated. I cannot be around them. And what does that do? That leads you to express your frustrations, and that will become backbiting. So that was a dua that I always say, رَبَّنَا لَا تَجْعَلْ فِي قُلُوبِنَا غِلًّا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Do not let in my heart be any animosity or hatred towards those who have iman. And just like leaving it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And wallahi, Allah will eventually remove that feeling, that frustration from your heart, and you just become like, I don't really care, you know, I'm not really bothered, you know. And then also recognizing that, and I feel this too, is that sometimes if, you know, like that person, you're still always just you're not your best self around them. You don't have the best thoughts around them. What is the problem of just stepping back? There's no issue with just stepping back. You give them their haqq, but you're not directly working with them. You're not directly, you know, like doing things with them, especially if you got burnt by them before. The believer is not one who is like constantly being hurt by the same individual. You make your boundaries clear. You know, you make your boundaries clear. And that's good. That's okay. But obviously not to get into a place where you're doing injustice and you're speaking about them, you know, whether it is true or not true, right? I can't believe we're not done. So this one, I think in the last surah, we did talk a lot about money, but then in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about hoarding. And hoarding is like when you are not paying the obligatory expenses. الَّذِي جَمَعَ مَالًا وَعَدَّدَ. The one who collects money and hoards it, does not pay its haqq, no zakah, no sadaqah, no taking care of the family sustenance. So that's the one that is being punished, right? Not the one, if somebody has all this wealth, but then they pay those obligations, and they still have a whole lot of money and they spend it the way they want, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like we don't have anything to, like there's no, that's their money. They do with it whatever they want, you know? So the money matters of the hearts. There is the story of, I'll share one of them for the interest of time, is that knowing that this money that you have came from Allah. So there was an authentic hadith of the 3 men. One was a leper, like his skin problem, one was bald, and one was blind. Each one of them was visited by an angel. And the angel asked them, the leper, like, what do you wish? I wish Allah will take away my skin disease. Allah took it away. What kind of wealth do you wish for? He said, I wish I had camel, and Allah gave him the camel. Years later, the angel comes back looking like they looked like, with a skin disease, and he's begging them. And then he says to them, get out, I'm not going to help you. And he says, you know, like, weren't you a leper before? And he says, no, I was always healthy. This is my wealth. I made it. So I'm not going to share anything with you. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts them back into the way they were. The bald man, same thing. He asked for a specific type of cattle. Allah gives it to them. But then when the angel comes to visit, they do the exact same thing. The blind man, he says, you know what? All this wealth, Allah gave it to me, and I was blind, and Allah cured me. So take from it whatever you want. Like recognizing Allah gave it to me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cured me, so I'm going to share as much as you want, you can have it. And so the angel said to him, may Allah put barakah in your wealth for you. I was here to test you. So you never know who is this beggar that is asking you, you know, especially like we live here and we see a lot of homeless people, and sometimes we're asked, like, should you give them money? Should you give them food? They're going to buy drugs. They're going to buy alcohol. They are not going to get resources. I know there's a lot of, like, if, but then when somebody is in need and they're asking you, what is your attitude? What is your behavior? What is your first thought? Do you want to help and sincerely help and support? Or are you just like hoarding it for you and not wanting to share any of it? I think we already talked about that. So these are some personal reflections that you could think about and journal about. I didn't give you other reflections with the previous surahs. because I think we've done some gratitude thinking before. These are about like becoming aware of the assumptions, the feelings that we have about other people. What are we conscious of? And like really writing it down or realizing them, like just sitting with them and say, in my heart, this is how I feel about like this. In my heart of heart, this is how I feel about, you know, like this individual, and this is why it bothers me, and this is why it makes me feel this way. Getting down to the core of it so that we see, like, is it kibr? You know, because so many people have kibr. So many, like, I remember my teacher teaching us that one of the biggest diseases of the heart is obviously kibr, but also like anger. When we get angry at other people, that the root cause of it is that we are belittling them and we think we are better than them. So if there's anger issues, where is that coming from? You know, how does this influence your actions and behaviors towards them? Did you ever feel like you were being talked about in a negative way, and how did that make you feel? You know, like getting, you know, step into the shoes of somebody else, basically. And then who do you need to forgive? Who has maybe harmed you in words, whether you know about it or not know about it? Who do you want to forgive? And who do you want to ask for forgiveness? Who do you need to make dua for? You know, maybe you go to them and ask them for forgiveness, or you make dua for them. I remember my teacher once gave us homework in one tazkiyah class, and he told us, go and apologize to someone who wronged you. And I went, you know, rushing, like, yep, she did me wrong. I'm going to go to her and I'm going to ask her to forgive me. And I did that, right? But wallahi, years later, guess what was apparent to me? That it was me who also did this person wrong, you know? That I wasn't innocent. Like, that we always think, like, we put ourselves in this pedestal and we think we're good and we're righteous and we're on the right. But then it really takes a lot to recognize your own faults. That you turn the camera on you and say, like, hey, what am I bringing to this relationship, in this situation? Then what's your money story? I think we talked about this in the last surah, but also revisiting your money story when it comes to giving. Are you generous, or do you have emotions about money that influence your behavior with money? How do you become mindful of that? Check yourself when it comes to giving sadaqah. What are the thoughts that you have, and how do you do it? Alhamdulillah. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. I so appreciate you ladies being here this late at night. It's actually like past my bedtime. I go to bed around this time. Alhamdulillah though. We're done, and I'm wondering if you have any questions, reflections that you want to share with me. But I'll stop the recording just so that it doesn't go too long.